Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say we have Sharon today. Sharon's a director of marketing. How are you doing, Sharon?
I'm good, Tom. Thank you.
Sharon, I always start off the show the same, which is, could you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your career to date, please?
Yes. So I'd say, like a lot of marketers, I started in B2C, an agency side, and I loved it. I loved working with brands that were familiar, that I grew up with, that I knew. So I worked with like Unilever and Skoda, Super Value, really familiar brands. Um, but I got itchy feet. I was only kind of like centered on the Irish market. And I wanted to get to know the international market. I thought that sounded exciting, like how do campaigns transfer from different geos, different markets, and just sort of like broaden my range of skills. So I moved into B2B with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and that was an excellent role. I was on the international marketing team. I was working with Spain, South America, Sweden, like so many different countries and different marketing teams there. And I absolutely loved it. And I actually realized I absolutely loved B2B. I really grew a huge passion for it. I loved that it moved slower. You had time to do the foundations properly in B2B, whereas B2C, and particularly probably because I was in agency, you were always stuck in a kind of like treadmill of campaigns and campaign timelines and wanting everything yesterday, and things like that. And you were often tactic focused, I found, because you were getting this brief. They wanted this particular campaign for a certain channel, and you went and did it, and you didn't do the groundwork. Like, you got some notes, but you didn't get to do it yourself, like speak to the customers, do the research and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, B2B, you have the time to do that. There isn't that sort of treadmill of endless, 10% off ends this Saturday, kind of thing.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, no, it's made a really good point. For the same reasons I love B2B, you can get into a better cycle, definitely.
Yeah.
So what would you see as your main strength in marketing nowadays?
Nowadays, yeah. So, like, if you'd asked when I first started primarily in content and social, content creation and social, so SEO and things like that. And I suppose, while working in there, I was really concerned with messaging, and how things were phrased, and, how important the wording you used influenced the effectiveness of of a campaign you were working on. Like, I know it's obvious, but like just simple things like testing the word, the words. Like, we found, sometimes you'd be writing, you'd say something like, oh, you should check this out, or you should, and it's like, even using the word kind of thing, and the power of personalization and all that kind of thing. So I really liked that. But I'd say, like, now, as I've moved to more senior roles, I suppose my strength, I would say now, is just is having an open mind and being inquisitive. Like, I know that's not a tactical skill as such, but like, I think it's really important. Like, I meet in my role now at Maverick Communications, which is a B2B marketing agency. We're working with such a wide range of different industries and different clients and companies of different sizes. And there's so much to learn when you on board with them, like what their product does, who needs it, and they're always so product focused and so in love with the innovation that they've brought, to their company. And then when we step in on the marketing side, it's all about their market. Like, who is the customer? What are their concerns? What are their pains and challenges? And who else is out there that they're comparing this company to? And all that kind of thing. So So just, I suppose, trying to leave any presumptions at the door, and really listening. There's so many people to listen to, when you onboard a new client. So it's like, so that inquisitiveness, and even when you're putting campaigns together, looking at reports, just keeping an open mind and trying not to bring in your biases, or you devise a campaign to do X and you're trying to prove that it did X, rather than learn what else is there to learn about the activity, what other things happened there, kind of thing.
Yeah, really good points. Really good points. And like, can you give me an example of how you took some of your work and you took a campaign and made it really successful? Like an example of work you're really proud of.
There's one company actually that we worked with that I onboarded pretty shortly after joining Maverick, and they had a new product that they were bringing out. So it was a new product, and they also they had done the research, and the biggest opportunity was the US, and they hadn't marketed in the US and Canada. They hadn't marketed in those regions before. So we had to, so like we got the basics. We were working with a really good marketing manager in there. They're like a lot of our companies that we work with, they might have a one person marketing team, internally, who has to do everything, the poor person. So they came to us, so we were working with them. So they knew their product inside out, they knew the company inside out. So they gave us that insight. And then it was about bringing that service and that product over to the US and how it would translate. And we used a number of different tactics. I mean, we used content, we used lead gen. I know that's like controversial now, like lead gen, download kind of brochures where you have to fill in the contacts, and people are saying just give it away for free now. Don't, you know what I mean? Like, don't put it behind a gate. But we used those. We used social media content, and it was amazing, like the effects that it had over, and it took time to build. I mean, we were doing a mix of short-term activation and long-term brand building, because they weren't a familiar company in the US, but the industry that they're in was so niche. There wasn't that many other competitors out there,
Yeah.
but a huge market for what they were doing. So I love a lot of the companies we work with. The opportunities that they have is huge. Like, they're small companies, they do something really, really well. There's a tiny proportion of the population who really want this product, and it's about connecting them, making sure that that audience knows that this company exists, because people buy from who they know. They're not necessarily looking for, well, who's the best, because everyone will tell you they're the best, kind of thing. It's but it's like, who are the companies that they're finding when they're in research stage? So we found with that campaign that we not only increased their business for that service, but we also increased their business for their other products and other services in the US, because people were finding them, and then finding out the other things that they did. So it was really, really good.
It's a really good example. I like, obviously targeting was a big thing there. Like, is that something you love doing? Is that something you kind of focus on a lot of time, is trying to understand the audience and then finding ways? You obviously mentioned social, which is so good for targeting like pockets like America or Canada or something like that, and breaking down. I'm sure that's why that campaign was so successful, is you knew how to identify the audience, find that niche, and basically advertise them.
And like, even though they're niche, trying not to be too tight with our audience targeting, I think, is a big thing, because sometimes people, I think, restrict their audiences to too small. Like, you've got that sort of targeting an audience, then retargeting people who engage, then retargeting them again, and making your audience smaller and smaller and smaller. And like, in any industry, but particularly in B2B, you have that like 95/5 rule, where only 5% of your market is actually in market, like ready to buy at any given time. So if you're making your niche audience smaller and smaller and smaller, like you're really reducing the possibility that you're targeting people, that part of that audience that are 5%, and they are searching and ready to buy. So keeping in mind that people that your target audience will be moving companies, they'll be, so even if they're not ready to buy in one company, they might be ready to buy when they move into another company. And the brand building, so that if they are ready to buy that product that your company makes, that your company comes to mind, kind of thing. So, I think there's some study that generally people have 3 agencies or 3 companies in mind, when they're buying, that they'll compare and research and look up online, and of those, some of them they might have found through search, or looking for their the companies that address their pain points, and other ones they might be aware of, kind of thing. So it's just making sure that the companies that we're working with are top of mind with the audiences that we're talking to. And I think you have to stay wide if you're going to do that, as wide as you can. I mean, obviously we're working in B2B, industries that work in pharmaceuticals, that work in construction, manufacturing, various different industries. So, there's no point talking to somebody in pharmaceuticals if your product is for waste, kind of thing, or something like that.
Yeah, completely.
So within reason, but I would be a favor of trying to keep your targeting as wide as you can within your industry.
Brilliant. And Sharon, is there any particular softwares you use daily, weekly, monthly that you swear by?
We do, I suppose, marketers and our tech stacks and all that. But I would say the one I probably use the most is SEMrush, because it's so valuable when you're onboarding a new client, when you're like surveying the what's the word, when you're
Marketplace, the industry.
like trying to get a sense of what's happening in the industry, and how they're stacking up against similar industries. So looking at their competitor research, the strength of their website, their site health, and going on then once we're working with the companies, if we've got an SEO plan, seeing, monitoring that, seeing how it's going, if we're making, what I mean? Like if you don't know what you're measuring, you don't know if you're making any progress. So, having those kind of benchmarks in place before we get even going with the client, I find it's really good for that. There's a couple of AI tools then that have crept in the last year or two as well, like Copy AI would be one. It's really good for ideation, I find, as well, so trying to find different ways to say the same thing, and different, just for kind of like thinking outside the box, helping you extend your, because sometimes I think we get a bit cozy and comfy in the messaging that we're creating. So helping yourself kind of break out of that habit, I think it's good for that. And Grammarly is another one just for tidying up text, and I suppose helping you, kind of like making you realize if there's places where you're getting a bit fluffy or off the point, keeping your text concise. It's a good one. The LinkedIn library, ad library as well, is a really good tip for anyone who's doing competitor research or just nosing about what ads are live on LinkedIn in different industries. You can search by company name, but you can also search by keyword, like say by a product type or something like that as well. And it's if you Google LinkedIn ad library, you'll find it, and it's just a tool where you can just put in a company name or anything, and it will just show you all the ads that are running, like, in that category or by that company. And it's interesting just to see the wording choices, the creative choice, all that kind of thing.
That's your B2B knowledge coming into play there, Sharon. Very impressive. Mine, really good advice. And looking at yourself, is there anywhere you're looking to upskill or learn more about at the moment?
I did actually do a postgrad this year in it was in entrepreneurship and um, and business development. Like totally not marketing. But I find as I suppose as you get more senior in your role in marketing, it's really important that you understand the business the business outside of marketing, so all the other areas that you need to, like organizational behavior, finance, um growth share, negotiation, all those kind of like topics, that I would, in my mind, I'm going the boring bits because they're not marketing, but I find it, it helps because, like, speaking to the clients that we work with, they're generally, as I said, have one person marketing team. So oftentimes we're speaking to the CEO or the managing director of the companies. They don't have marketing heads on, but they are concerned with their product, their innovation, their finance, their, cost and all that kind of thing. So I think having, I felt like I really thought that would benefit having that sort of inside knowledge as well of running a business, and having a strong business plan and all those kind of things for, for being on the same, being on the same plane with the CEOs and managing directors, that I, because sometimes I think marketers get very taken up with the marketing conversation, and without maybe placing it in the business context, which I think is super important if you want to secure solid investment, that's going to make a difference. I think you have to have the business acumen, to support it.
Definitely do. You definitely do. So yeah, I see that as a really good thing for you to learn about and take. So, is there anywhere you go for new insights and information?
Yeah. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to, I love, like, I'm just insane thirst for marketing conversations, marketing arguments, or what's new out there, what other people are doing, I'm just constantly, like, that's my spare, one of my hobbies. Like, so sad, but like, I have proper good, not marketing hobbies also. I just like but yeah, no, I just naturally I'm drawn to marketing content. So I drive a lot, so podcasts are great, and I'd highly recommend the Uncensored CMO with John Evans, the B2B Marketing Gap with Jade Tambini. I think she goes under B2B Jade now as well. She is phenomenal for marketers who are maybe starting out in B2B or coming on as or starting out as marketing anywhere. She's like so much sense and she's so relatable. On Strategy Showcase as well with Fergal O'Carroll, he does he interviews loads of marketers who've ran these fantastic campaigns, like the ones that you've kind of seen and caught your eye. And the innovation show then with Aidan McCullen, which isn't marketing. Sometimes he might have a marketer on, but again, that's kind of bringing in the business and innovation side. And Rick Rubin does an excellent podcast on creativity and speaking to creative artists in, various different fields, really diverse guests. And he's, it's really, I think it's good, again, just to break out of the mode of constantly talking about marketing. You've got these elements of creativity and business that feed into marketing as well. And it's good to sometimes listen to some of them. Rick Rubin's book as well on the creative act is superb. Like, it's really accessible and really deep at the same time. I don't know how he does it, but it's really good. And then books there's loads of books but that I could recommend, but How Not to Plan is like one of my favorites by Lads Bennett, and who else is on it? Sarah Carter, I think, is an author on it as well. And Run with Foxes by Paul Dervin. is one I always recommend to people starting out who maybe haven't read a marketing book before, because it's really short and the chapters are like 3 or 4 pages each. But he just it's like giving you a peek behind, a really talented marketer who's had amazing experiences. It's like, and he shares it in such a nice way, and he brings in like observations from his dad, who's a doctor and isn't even in the marketing field, who's kind of like poking him and making him think outside of his marketing head, and going, but real life doesn't work like that, and sort of things like that. So it's really, really good. And then
Love
on
it.
LinkedIn, like, is such a source of content. You have like Mark Ritson there, and Grace Kite of Magic Numbers, and you've copywriters like Vicky Ross, and any of the people I've mentioned already with podcasts. They do amazing stuff on LinkedIn as well. So like, we're bombarded with with information. Like, there's so much good stuff out there.
There really is.
Yeah.
Sorry, you mentioned at Mavericks you guys have a shared drive as well where you provide links and
Yeah.
inserts with some of this stuff.
Yeah, so I can share it after the show because it's huge. But like, it's a list of podcasts and email subscriptions, because there's some great ones out there. I know Substack as well. A lot of people are using that now. It's really interesting. Yeah, LinkedIn, influencers, I suppose. Yeah, books, everything is there. And like, even in Maverick, we have a library of books on brand, on marketing, on creativity, that we encourage people to like borrow and add to, as well. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's if you have the interest, there's loads, so much out there.
Love it.
Yeah.
And as a result, looking at the digital industry as a whole, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in the market at the moment? What excites you in the market?
Lots. I mean, first off, I mean, I love the way that I think B2B has evolved in the last few years. I think, particularly COVID probably paved the way for that, in the sense that it's kind of moved away from the sales orientated, like the sales relationship focus, to people, going out and expecting to be able to research and make decisions without talking to a salesperson, like doing some of their own competitor, not competitor research, but gathering their information and before purchasing or before being ready to buy. So there's I think there's bigger opportunities out there now for B2B to be more B2C, kind of thing, in the sense that they use marketing channels, not just to be like function product specific sort of focused, but to actually try and I suppose entertain as such, and include and evolve and engage with their audience, even outside of the buying cycle kind of thing. So that's one thing. I was at Web Summit as well this year, and there was a German agency there called Mutabor, like Mutabor, and they've brought out an AI tool called Mutabor AI, and it's basically an imaging and video tool for creating any image you want, but exactly in your brand. So they use the example of, if you've just built a website for a company and you've done their brand and it's fantastic, and then you put it into their hands, and then they go off, and as they make a couple of changes and add content to it or do content on social, and you're like, oh my god, that image that's not them at all, you know what I mean, like, that's so wrong and whatever. So they basically program an AI tool to give you images in your design, in your brand style, so even if your images are predominantly a type of illustration, or they have a pastel colors, or they have a futuristic look, like there's loads of different, then like you can put in something like man beside whiteboard, kind of thing, and it will give you like, countless images of a man standing beside a whiteboard. And then some of it might be futuristic, some of it might be in illustrate, you know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
they'll give you it in your style, you know, for your brand. And I thought that was, it was really cool. I think their presentation is on their website. You can see it. And I'm not doing it justice here, but it was like, everybody was like, oh, wow. Like, you know, it's so true. Like, you know, as well, you know,
That's super interesting, and
yeah,
like great for them, because you can imagine, back to we said there about lead gen, but it's probably a way for them to acquire or keep companies close to them by having such tools available. Actually,
yeah,
to reiterate your advancements in B2B, Wednesday night I was on a webinar with like a software I was checking out, and there was about 120 people on the webinar. I couldn't believe how many people they had acquired to go to it, but people like myself just curious about how this is going to work out for them. And you're right, probably pre-COVID, that would have been in America, because it was American time. It would probably been in New York or somewhere. Probably would have had people nearby, but they couldn't get that wide reach. Whereas all of a sudden they had 120 from around the world attending it, and that's just because of the habit of online webinars now.
mm,
So yeah, it is moving really quickly.
yeah, yeah. I think it's exciting. Like, I'm really delighted because there's no, like, B2B has such a reputation on being so boring and drab and not exciting or innovative or not effective, basically. Do you know what I mean? So you can say, oh, whatever, it's not exciting, but it does the job. But, you know, it's been proven, you know, that if you create content that sticks in the mind, that, you know, that is memorable, and that is and that you know, creates the, you know, activates somebody, creates the emotion that you want them to take, that, you know, it needs to have some level of creativity and excitement and emotion to it, you know, kind of thing, that it's not just our product does A, B, C, you know, kind of thing. um it's about, I suppose, creating a a feeling or like an affinity, do you know what I mean, with the brand, and not in a fluffy way, but do you know, it's that's just the way our brains work, do you know, kind of thing. If something strikes a chord with us, we remember it, you know. That just makes sense, you know.
Yeah, completely. And Sharon, unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you the last question of the show, which tries to understand the person behind the role a bit more. But if you could boil up one personality trait that you have yourself that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
I would say, if you're looking at reports and looking at data, um, to, I suppose, don't look for answers. Like, just ask, look for questions, question it, like, question the data. I think just bringing that, I think we often look at data, and especially in marketing, we often look at data and we're looking for confirmation, for, you know, for the activity, whatever activity we've driven. We're looking for confirmation that it worked and that it was a success, and that we can say, you know, yes. And data, you know, data can show you whatever you want it to, you know, like, you can manipulate it to, you know, if you're looking for to show you, prove something, you'll find a way. But I think taking a step back, looking at something with a full picture in mind, and going, what is this data telling me, rather than, is it telling me we were right? Is it telling me, you know, the campaign was success? I think going into it, and just having an open mind and questioning, I think that's one of the best things you can do, when you're looking at reports or anything like that. And I think a huge thing now with AI and tools helping us do everything quicker. I think, you know, if something isn't well thought out and it's sloppy, in the first place, having it quicker isn't going to make it better. Like, you're still going to have a sloppy result. So I think, you know, not getting lost from the foundations of marketing, because I think sometimes they are, you know, so the, you know, doing the basics right, like the research, the listening to the client, the interviewing the clients, customers, all that sort of stuff. It's, it takes a while, but it's so worthwhile. And it just helps you get the right, then your tactics, then your channels, and your messaging comes, but doing the groundwork, I think, as well. You just, nothing, there's no tool, there's nothing that can replace doing that.
Yeah. Well, brilliant answer. Brilliant answer, Sharon. If anyone wants to reach you or find you, how can they get in touch?
Easy peasy on LinkedIn, because I'm on there fairly often. So yeah, Sharon Tighe on LinkedIn. And or like through our company, like, so Maverick Communications. Don't just put in Maverick, you'll get the movie with Tom Cruise. But yeah, Maverick Communications, Maverick Marketing. We're based just outside Limerick, actually, in Killaloe. So Killaloe/Ballina. So yeah, it's that's where we are. And yeah, B2B, industrial, manufacturing, tech companies, they're the people we work with.
Love it. Sharon, thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks everyone for watching, listening, and everything else.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks.